Hello and welcome to another ASMR video by Just Listen, your destination for relaxation. And you can see that today we're having another Marimba video. I have my small Marimba here and I've sat it on top of my big Marimba. Because of the time, it's 4:30 in the morning right now, and so I can't really play on the big marimba because it's too loud. It will wake up the people sleeping in the next room. So I thought I would produce some ASMR sounds on the small marimba, and maybe a little bit on the big marimba, but nothing too loud. Last time I showed you these cork mallets that I made. You see how much louder the big marimba is? So these cork mallets, they're quite good. They're quiet. You see, and they're soft, so they bring out more of the fundamental frequency from the bars and not so much harmonic. Well, I made some different cork mallets. I used much thicker dowel and smaller corks, and I sprayed the corks with varnish, so they're a little bit harder. So these mallets are also quite light. They feel a little bit more like drumsticks. The stick is much heavier than the other ones, but the tip is lighter. So you can also hear it brings out a bit more of the harmonic note. It brings out a bit more of the ting, 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 ting. Whereas this brings out more of the thud. So I don't know, I kind of like the sound of these on the smaller marimba. Of course, with the smaller bars that we have here, a lighter mallet makes a better sound because there's less timber to move, so it doesn't need as hard of a hit. And course, if you bounce the mallet off faster, the note resonates for longer, whereas if you're slower to bounce it off, then it doesn't resonate as much. I have different marimba mallets, made for actual professional marimbas. These are much heavier than the small cork mallets that I've been making, and these are good for the full-size marimba. And I also have some mallets that have some mallets with wool on them. And these are mostly good for the full-sized marimba, because they're very soft and very heavy. Whereas the smaller marimba sounds better with lighter and slightly harder materials. But for the purposes of ASMR, I think I can get an interesting sound. Doing this. And isn't it interesting that you can hear the note from the bar, and it becomes so much more obvious when I change notes. There are two different sounds. this marimba that I made and the big marimba which I also made. The big marimba took a long time to make. This one only took about a month or so. But I am actually in the process of building another marimba. It's very similar to this one, but it's going to be even smaller. So the bars are going to be the same length and the same note as all of these bars on this marimba. However, instead of 40 millimeters in diameter, they're going to be 30 millimeters in diameter. So all the bars will be a bit narrower. It should be a little bit narrower. It shouldn't be as big and cantankerous to carry around. And there's some other things that I've changed about the design. As you can see with this one, all of the bars have a dowel that sticks through. And the reason why I did this was I wanted it to be easy enough to remove the bars if I wanted to. So the bars were sitting on a string and I could just lift them off. Unfortunately, when you're playing it, they can also bounce off and become displaced while you're playing the instrument. So I changed it and I put a second string that goes over the top of all the bars, and it goes through this dowel here. So actually now you can't remove them. The only way you can remove them is to cut the second string. So if I wanted to tune all of these bars and put them back on the instrument and test whether what they sound like on the instrument, I could cut the second string and the bottom string is still there, so they can still be played. I just don't have anything securing them on the instrument. But the new one that I'm making isn't going to have this hole in the bar. Instead, what it's going to have, like with the larger marimba, like with most professional marimbas, it's going to have a hole through the side of the bar, and the string threads through that hole. So the only way that you can remove the bars is to remove that whole string from all of the bars on that row. So if I wanted to tune this C note, all the natural notes have to come off. So it's not quite as convenient with tuning, but I mean, this sort of instrument isn't really designed to be tuned frequently anyway. It's really like something you might do at the end of the year after all of the bars have dried a little bit and temperature and the moisture and stuff gets to them. The other thing that I had a problem with this instrument is because the dowel goes through a hole in the bar. If you bump this bar, it will snap the dowel because there's a direct sideways force being put into that dowel. So if children are playing with it, it can break very easily. And because with the other marimba that I'm making now, it's going to be a Christmas present for some children, I need to make something that's a little bit safer, that won't break off. The good thing about this sort of thing is that pieces, although it does have little pieces, they're unlikely to come completely off the instrument because they're secured by a string. So even if this breaks, it's hanging on the string. So it's relatively safe for choking hazards with little children. So I'll show you what I've prepared so far. I've already cut all of the bars for this little marimba, and they look like this, but they haven't been tuned. As you can see, I haven't cut the arch into the underside of these bars, so the sound that they produce is a lot higher in pitch. This bar will eventually sound like this. When I've tuned it, it will be tuned to this G note, which is 392 Hertz. So what I've done with these bars is I've sanded the top. That's the part that you'll be able to see. I've sanded it with 240 grit sandpaper and then with 400 grit sandpaper. And I might end up sanding it going all the way up to 1000 grit or 2000 grit sandpaper to make it nice and shiny on the top. The other thing that I did was all of these marimba bars, I put oil on them to protect them from moisture, and it also brings out the colour and makes them look very nice. So with the rest of them, up until this point, I've always oiled them after I've tuned them. And when I made this one, something I noticed was I'd tune the bar, so I'd be sanding the arch out of the bar, and then I put oil over it once I was finished, and the oil would lower the tuning of the bar, not by a lot, but just a little bit. So if I brought it down to the correct note, I put the oil on, and it gets lower than the note that I'm going for. And that's not good if you go lower than the note that you're going for, because then the only way to fix that is to remove material from the two ends of the bar. And you have to take off quite a lot from the ends to lower it just a little bit. To raise the pitch just a little bit. So it's something that we try to avoid. So what I did with this one instead is I oiled all of these bars as soon as I cut them to length. So before I started sanding it, before I did any tuning, I oiled them. I want to get a base level of oil into the bar ahead of time, and then when I tune it, I'll oil it again after I've removed this material from the inside. So it will still, sometimes I'll oil it when it's nearly tuned to pitch, and then if I have time I'll oil the inside of the arch and then tune it all the way down later after the oil's had a bit of chance to soak in. So every time I build something, I'm always thinking of how I can make the process better. Because it takes a lot of time to build things out of wood like this. You try to make something look really nice, or you try to do it correctly. It can take a long time. So there's a number of things that I do now that I've just sort of learnt to do just from the experience of working with the wood. One thing that I'm going to do for the first time with this next marimba is I'm going to use some special jigs that I've made in order to drill the holes in the exact right place. Because with this big marimba, it has holes drilled through the sides of the bars for the cord to go through. It's quite a thick cord on this big marimba. And when I drilled through the side, on one side, you're drilling straight through, and out the other side, and you're aiming to get the hole sort of in the same place on both sides. That's not too hard, so I used a drill press, like an attachment for the drill that presses. You press it and it straightens the drill so that it goes through in a nice straight line. And that was okay. It wasn't perfect, because you see, if this side has been cut on a bit of an angle, that angle will continue through the hole. So it wasn't perfect, but it was okay. On the other side, because one side of the bar, the string goes through on an angle, I had to set my drill press so that it would take an angle through there. And that was very hard to do, because then of course when you've got the drill press set on an angle, you then have to orientate it this way, or it'll go wrong. So some of the bars on this bigger marimba are not quite straight. Some of the holes that I drilled through them are not quite straight. You can't really see it, but I know about it. it makes it imperfect. And the other thing it does is, if the bars are suspended by this string and the holes aren't all drilled at the same depth on the bar, that means that the bars don't all sit in a straight line. So some of them are a bit higher than others. So what I've done this time round is I've made myself a little jig. So you sit your bar in here. You line up where you want to drill the hole against this line. So I have the nodal point marked here. Node is the part of the bar that doesn't vibrate. So I would line that nodal point up to that line, and then I have a hole to drill into, a very small little hole. And when I drill into that, I know that it will drill the hole in the same place for one side and for the other side. So then I put it in this side and drill into the other side. If you drill in both sides and meet in the middle, then you know that both holes are inside the bar it might be a bit messy, but on the outside the holes are both in the correct place. So that's a little thing that I devised for drilling holes in the correct place. Now, so as you may be able to realize, I've spent a lot of time building marimbas, and that's because it's sort of become an obsession of mine. As something I find really exciting is being able to take a piece of wood and work with it to make it produce a particular kind of sound that's connected to my enjoyment of ASMR, producing interesting sounds out of objects. Of course, I feel a little strange about it because it's a bit of an obscure hobby. Because I'm sort of interested in playing it, but I'm more interested in making it than in playing it. So I'm not so good, you know. You know what I mean? I can play simple melodies. I can pick out melodies alright. I have a decent ear for music that I can hear a melody in my head and I can pick it out on the marimba fairly easily. But as for being able to play something complicated, I'm not so good at that. I don't have the skills yet to do that. I have a little bit of skill on the piano, and I've played the guitar for more than 20 years, so I have a bit of a musical background. But at the moment, yeah, my hobby is really just sort of producing pieces of wood that make sounds that I like. And so I have this big marimba, but I hardly ever play because most of the spare time that I have, most of the time that I'm really free to do what I want to do, is very early in the morning when people are asleep. And so because they're asleep, I can't make loud noises. So if I want to play marimba, I can't play this big one, it's too loud. That was partly why I made the little one. It's also you know, for the kids. I think it's a cool thing for the kids to have. But you know, for very small kids, obviously they can break it fairly easily. And so I still have the drive to build another marimba or a xylophone. And Christmas is coming up, and that's really just an excuse for me to build another one, because I still have the interest in building one. After I built this one, I was hungry for more, so I'm improving my design, making it a bit more child friendly, a little bit smaller, and I'm going to give that away sure what kind of long-term plans I would have for building xylophones and marimbas. Now, what makes a xylophone a xylophone, and what makes a marimba a marimba? You may wonder why I keep saying marimba when I'm talking about a small instrument that looks like a xylophone. Well, to me, the definition that I've chosen to go by is the one based on how the bars are tuned. So, on a marimba, a professional marimba, the bars are tuned to a fundamental note. That's the note that you think what you're playing when you hit it. And then the next note on the marimba that that bar plays is 2 octaves higher. So if I play A 440, the next note, the other note that you can hear, you may not be able to make it out, but the other note is 2 octaves above A 440. So it's not 880, it's 1760, I believe that's it. The frequency is 1760. So I tune the bar so that you hit it in the middle, 440, but if you hold it in the middle and hit the side, is 1760. That frequency, those 2 notes, those 2 frequencies that you get from a marimba bar, that's the definition of a marimba according to me when I'm building these. If I want to make it a xylophone, then I would tune the fundamental exactly the same way, but this harmonic I would tune to 1 octave and a fifth above the fundamental note. So instead of it being like C, C, you know, the harmonic of this C note is the same as the fundamental, this C bar. So instead of doing that, I would tune it to this and this. So it'd be like the xylophone, I would tune like that, because professional xylophones and marimbas generally follow that sort of scheme to how they tune the bars. That may seem like a very technical difference, and it may not be the appropriate definition that most people would use, but that's what I'm going by. I've made one xylophone that I tuned in that way, in the xylophone tuning, and I found it was quite different. The process of sanding the bars, instead of sanding 1 arch, I felt like I had to sand 2 arches in it, because I had to lower the harmonic note by a lot more to get it to the correct pitch. Well, as you can probably tell, I could waffle on forever about xylophones and marimbas. Actually, I also built a glockenspiel, which I don't have right here, but it is it's like a xylophone, like this, but instead of wooden bars, it has aluminum, depending on where you're from. It has aluminium flat bars, very small, and they're just cut to different lengths. So I didn't sand an arch into them at all. I just cut them to different lengths. I didn't tune any harmonics. I just tuned them to a fundamental frequency, by cutting them to the correct length, and then I secure them together using drilling a hole through the top of the bar and putting a nail through it, and they just sit on a piece of felt, and so and it sounds quite good, you know. It's actually quite interesting how good it sounds when all it is a few pieces of flat bar. Well, I could waffle on like this forever, but I probably shouldn't. Thank you if you've sat here and listened to this whole video. Thank you. I haven't made any content for a little while because I've been very busy with work, but I hope to get more time to make more ASMR videos like this, and so I'll catch you on the next one.